This is Mark Bell. We're here at Lululemon headquarters. I'm here with my boy Nsima, and we're going to talk about Lululemon. No, we're going to talk about diet mindset today and how your mindset might change and how it might be important for you to have a different mindset in the beginning of nutrition. In the beginning of a diet intervention, it might be good for you to have a particular mindset, but you might want to look towards morphing into something different. What are some of your thoughts on this?
I think that the big thing with your diet is that every individual is different. So for you, you knew that when you started the whole dieting process, that a thing that was triggering for you was carbohydrates. And that was the same thing for me. I'm an individual that could overeat the fuck out of any type of carbohydrate you throw my way. You remember those, like the Costco, the
Nature
granola
Valleys,
bars?
right?
I could eat a box of Nature Valley granola bars.
Those are delicious.
Doesn't help with the diet, right? So personally, I knew that foods that would trigger me were like, easy to eat carbohydrates. So I personally had to get those foods out of the house and instead substitute a lot of carbohydrates like potatoes, starches, things that would fill me up, fibrous types of carbohydrates that I couldn't necessarily overeat. And I had to have that be at the start of my diet so that when I got to where I am now, I'm a little bit less rigid. But initially, you have to figure out the foods that you overeat, whether it be chocolates, snack foods, etc.
Guilty.
You have to get those out of the way so that you can actually start to make some progress at the beginning.
For me, it's important to get a lot of these things out of the house as well, but I also have kids, so they have some snacks around, but the snacks that they eat, I'm lucky that they're not really things that I really enjoy. So sometimes the one thing that is hard that they might have around is ice cream. I really, really love ice cream, but for me, the mindset that I have and the mindset that I built towards some of these foods is I just simply tell myself that it's bad. And I tell myself that's not good for me. I know that ice cream's not inherently bad. I know that there's no bad food necessarily. However, sometimes these highly processed foods where we start to mix ingredients and we have fat and carbohydrates together, like you might have in a candy bar or in pizza or in ice cream, that those are going to be foods that I'm going to overeat. Like I can almost guarantee, like I'm not going to be able to eat like a scoop of ice cream.
Fuck that.
My
Who
wife,
does that?
My wife's able to go into the freezer and like take out like 2 scoops and be like, yeah, I'm good. I got
She's
my
a
ice cream.
psychopath.
That's what I said.
Please don't fire me.
Yeah, Andy Bell's a maniac. It's madness, right?
Yes,
it's pure madness. I'm not able to do it, but the main point here we're trying to share with you guys today is know what your capabilities are and know what your limitations are. So our mindset, I think we have a similar mindset when it comes to food. We have kind of worked our way into kind of more flexible dieting almost, where I'm not like counting anything, I'm not really tracking anything, and I know that tracking and counting macronutrients and stuff is a huge part of flexible dieting. But what we're saying here is like, I don't really necessarily look at most foods as being good or bad. There's really nothing that's like off my diet. There are things that could interrupt my goal or get in the way of my goal. And those are things that I kind of just put in that category, push them off, and it's easier for me in my head just to say, those aren't for me for right now.
I think that's the big essence of what we want to get at here, because your mindset towards your diet is going to evolve over time. And initially, there are going to be good and bad foods. Like we're trying to say here, yeah, there are no good and bad foods, but when you start and you have an end goal and you're at the beginning of that, you need to figure out what are those bad foods for you.
If you came to us and you said, hey, how am I doing? And you said that you ate ice cream and pizza, we'd say, you're doing bad.
Exactly.
You're doing shitty.
Especially if you ate a lot of that, because like everyone at the start of a diet eats a lot of that. But here's another example. Alcohol is a great example, because I always get asked the question, hey, can I fit in some alcohol into my diet, right? Well, that depends. Are you an individual that overdoes it when they have wine? Like, can you not have one glass? Do you have to have 3-4 glasses of wine? Can you have a single beer at night, or does it turn into having a whole 6-pack? You need to identify if that's a trigger for you. For me, alcohol was never a trigger. So I could have a beer and
what if you're the kind of person that after one beer, you start taking your pants off?
See, that happens to me, but that doesn't mean I need another beer, right?
I mean, maybe your decisions aren't great at that point. Maybe they're impaired, and maybe your food choices aren't going to be great at that point.
The pants come off, but another beer doesn't go into the mouth. So overall, my calories are fine.
That's nice. You don't have to worry about the pants being too tight at that point
Exactly.
either.
The pants pants aren't too tight.
It's a strategy.
Exactly.
It's a strategy. You can do what?
Nothing. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
Weird gesture.
But this is what we're getting at here. At the beginning of your diet, you need to figure out what are those things that you binge on. What are those things that when you have a rough day, when you're having a rough week, when everything's super busy and when you make a bad decision, what are those foods that you make bad decisions on? And then those are bad for a while. But now at the point where we are currently, for me, there's nothing that's a bad food, because over the time of dieting, I did utilize some tracking in the beginning and getting used to portions, etc. No food, like I don't tend to binge anymore. I've built those habits in, and now I don't have any good and bad foods. I can now control myself around some Nature Valley granola bars. I can now have a third of a serving of Ben & Jerry's, right?
There's a couple of ways that we have both gotten there, and one way for me is through convenience, through some meal prep. And I know that you don't really meal prep anymore. I don't really meal prep any longer either. But it might be something important for people, especially in the beginning, and that's something that I did used to do, and I think you used to do it as well, especially for your bodybuilding shows, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did. Meal prepping does make things a lot easier, and I think one thing, because people, if you're not doing bodybuilding and if you're busier, you can't always meal prep. So one thing that I always suggest to individuals is try to maybe get a meal prep service. I was having a talk with an individual about this yesterday. He's a police officer, and when he's on the job, he doesn't always have time to make food, and he always tends to, busy day, stops by fast food, on his way home. Instead, just maybe have something like Icon Meals, or one of these companies that make like the vertical meals. Have that on deck so that when you are heading home or when you are finding that you're very busy, you have something there that you can eat. Either meal prep it or have something there so then you don't make the bad decision that you continue to make and you know is something that's not going to end up being good for you in your diet. So you can figure out what those are and then always have a plan to get past it.
Another great strategy to gain more control and to change your mindset as you go along is just to utilize some intermittent fasting.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
Intermittent fasting has taught me a great deal of control. A lot of times, even just when I'm like cooking something, I find myself eating a bunch of other food as I'm waiting for my food.
Yeah.
I find myself after dinner like wanting to eat more food, but just the simple act of fasting and enacting intermittent fasting, when I'm usually done with dinner at like 7 o'clock, I'm usually like, okay, well, my fast started. And I'm just, okay, at that point I can say eating is bad. You know what I mean? I can kind of put it in that category. Eating is cheating on the diet at this point because you already started your fast. And so I'm a couple hours into my fast, hopefully before I even go to bed. And then when I wake up in the morning, I might go 3-4 hours without food, and then I end up with a 14-hour fast or something like that.
Some people, for some people, fasting doesn't tend to work well. Some people feel like, oh, I'm way too hungry throughout the day. I feel like there is an adaptation period when it comes to fasting, but I will say, even for myself personally, it was something that helped me, it allowed me to get more control over my hunger too, because it used to be that in the past, whenever I was hungry, I immediately had to reach for a meal. Now, when I'm hungry, I don't have to eat. I know that that feeling is going to pass. I can wait to eat later on in the day. And like we've talked about, you heard us talk about multiple times as far as fasting is concerned, when you eat food in a smaller window, it is much harder to eat an excessive amount of food in that period of time, which means it's going to be much harder for you to eat so much that it's going to be a surplus of calories.
Be very careful not to go too far for too long. You know, if you're going to reduce the amount of calories that you're going to eat, you might find yourself 4, 5, 6 days later after a week that has been stressful with work and relationships and so forth. You might find yourself cheating on your diet and you're only just a couple days in, but it's maybe because the restrictions, maybe the macronutrient restrictions that you have, you're not eating any carbs or you went super low calorie, maybe you find yourself just really dying and being super hungry. And when you're super hungry, you're probably going to make bad decisions. So just be conscious of that and be cautious of that. What I've seen from a lot of people, and you've worked with a lot of people and still work with a lot of people, what I've seen from a lot of people is that they'll restrict a little too much, and then 4 or 5 days later, it's like it has a lag time. I think the human body has a little lag time. It's not so much about what you did yesterday, it's not so much about what you did necessarily today, but it could have been a couple days earlier when you made the decision to be in the gym for 2 hours. That is now leading you to be like, holy shit, I need more calories.
And we'll definitely talk about this in another video, but when you are setting up the amount of calories that you do want to eat, you don't want to be in too much of a deficit of calories. So a quick explanation, we all have a maintenance caloric intake. Okay, this is the amount of calories that we eat each day to allow us to keep the body weight that we have, along with our activity level. Whether we work out and whether you're a construction worker or whatever, you have a maintenance level of calories that allows you to keep your weight. Well, if let's say your maintenance is 2,000 calories and you choose to eat 1,300 calories a day, putting you in a 700 calorie deficit every single day, you're going to feel like crap after a period of time, and you're probably going to binge. This is why, in general, when you do set up your calories, if you do choose to track, you don't want your deficit to be too deep. You typically want to be in a 300 calorie deficit, maybe 400, so that you don't feel like crap all the time. This is also why fasting can help, because if you're eating that 1,600 calories in a smaller window, you're going to feel more satisfied with that amount of food in a 6-hour eating window rather than eating it in the amount of time that you're awake, which is typically 12 hours. So.
Another thing that's helped my mindset a ton is basically eating red meat.
Yeah.
It's helped a ton. Just the simple act of protein leveraging. We've talked about it in many other shows and on podcasts. But I think there's a component in there somewhere of having the correct micronutrients to kind of balance your mind and to kind of have maybe just even your hormones. I don't know exactly what the mechanism is behind it, but I do know that just by leveraging protein, by eating more protein and by eating red meat, it keeps me satiated, keeps me satisfied for longer. So I don't really feel, even though I still have the urge, I don't feel the need to cheat on the diet and to eat other stuff.
That's a hack that I use all the time. That's a hack that I give to people, not just eating red meat, but utilizing a protein shake, right? And if you're feeling super hungry during the day, have a protein shake beforehand or have a protein shake before one of your meals, because what that's going to do is you'll end up feeling a little bit fuller, and it'll be much easier for you to stop eating or feel more satiated with the meal that you're about to have. So that's something that I suggest that people do all the time when they start feeling cravings coming, because when you have a protein shake, you can usually fight that off a little bit better.
Protein shake before you go shopping is amazing. You won't end up with a bunch of bullshit in your car at the end of the day. Well, let's sign off here. Let's get out of here.
Let's do it. Do you do the sign off or am I going to do the sign off?
I think you should do it this time.
Oh my God. This is crazy. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got something from this video. Comment down below if you have, yes, down there. Comment down below if you have any questions for us, because we'll go ahead and answer those questions for you. If you have any other video or nutrition questions for us, please let us know. This is Nsima Inyang and
Mark Smelly Bell.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch y'all later.
Bam.